Hey, folks, how you doing? This is Reverend Wayne S. Pierce right here for the Free America Radio Network. This is the Views Expressed Live. Yes, lots of things. Lots of things going on, folks. Lots of things happening. Lots of things that, I don't know, man. What are we doing? You know, that's a good question. What are we doing? Now, I've put out the last couple of days, if you've listened to some podcasts, it sounds like I'm a little mean, a little harsh, a little, I don't know, judgmental. And I don't pull any punches, folks. I don't pull any punches because, frankly, I don't care what people think of me personally because I know who I am. I know what I'm able to do. I know how I'm able to do that. And no one has a right to tell me any differently. Okay? No one. I don't care who you are. I don't care what kind of job you have. But now, look at it this way. No one has a right to tell you how to live, what to do, what should be done in your life. No, am I right? So are we at a stalemate? I don't know, folks. We need to decide for ourselves. We need to decide right now, today, what we're going to do. Because today is the day that you have to live for yourself and other people. And if you happen to make it till tomorrow, same thing. You got to live for yourself and other people. Now, a lot of people say, well, I've done so much for everybody else all my life. Now it's time for me. Excuse me? Didn't you get any satisfaction out of doing things for other people? Because that's kind of an important thing in your life, isn't it? It's life in general, helping other people out. Would it not make you feel better to do things for other people? Well, did that not come back to you in some way? See, so I don't buy into this, I'll help people out, but what's in it for me? Because that's what it sounds like when you say, well, I've helped other people out all my life, now it's time for me. What? I don't get it, folks. It's going to be a light show today. Not a whole lot of politics, but I will read you some articles that I found very interesting. So stay tuned. I'll be more than happy to do that as well. It's only going to be an hour show today, folks, because I do other things other than this. And so I've got other things to do. So, please, stick around. Stick around. And I hope that I can educate you. I hope that I can show you who's behind the curtain pushing the buttons and pulling the handles. I hope that I can share with you some things that will help. Because, I feel good because it comes back to me, I feel good that I help other people out. I don't sit there and help somebody out and go, well, what's in it for me? The satisfaction of helping somebody out. That's the thing. I'll be back right after this. Don't wait until another natural or man-made disaster strikes. Have at least 72 hours of emergency gear near you at all times, and that includes food. Get your emergency food supply today. Go to freeamericaradio.us and at the top of the page, click on the emergency food supply link. Help your family by purchasing as much emergency food supply as you need. You'll be helping out your family and Free America Radio Network. Thank you. Hey folks, how you doing? Yeah, that was a short break right there, wasn't it? That was truly short. Holy crap! I didn't even. Oh my God. Almost didn't get back here in time. Anyway, the thing is that we all have a perspective, folks. We all have a way of looking at things. Here, let me give you the simple version of perspective, okay? Let me give you a simple version. Let me give you this. You're standing in a room, okay? And you're looking straight ahead. You're not moving your eyes. You're not moving your head. You're not turning your torso. You're not doing anything. You're just staring straight ahead. That's perspective. And when you move, let's say you make you turn to the right and stand there and look straight ahead. That's another perspective. Say you do that a few more times. Okay? That's perspective. Okay? The perception that you have is all of the things that your eyes can see. Your perceptics are working peripherally and, peripherally. There we go. That's the word. Peripherally. And also right out in front of you. Okay? So do this. Do this. Have a friend of yours come into that room where you're at and have them stand back to back, okay? Put their back against yours against theirs. And look straight ahead. Don't move. Don't move your eyes. Don't just imagine a dot on the wall in front of you. Stare at that. That's your perspective. And, stay there for about a minute or, whatever it is. And take in, just keep staring straight ahead, but take in all of the objects that are around, the wall, the whatever's in the room. And then when you're done, describe or ask your friend if they're done, or have somebody, a third person, to say, okay, a minute's up, and then, you go, or whatever, Have them describe to the other person, or you describe to the other person what you see. Describe it. Don't say, oh, it's, there's a picture on the wall. Well, what's in the picture? Well, okay, in the picture, it's, don't look at it. Even when you're done, keep your eyes straight ahead. And just don't move your eyes. Don't focus on any. Just keep your eyes straight ahead looking at that imaginary dot. Then when you're done, right, then describe it to the other person. Well, what do you see? You see a picture on the wall. What's in the picture? I can't tell from this perspective, but it looks like it has the appearance of, I may perceive it to be. I'm going down the line of things that you hear throughout your life. Okay? So describe everything you see to the person standing behind you that has their back on you. When you're done, tell them you're done and have them describe what they see without moving their head. Just stare straight ahead at that imaginary dot in the wall. And when you're done, say, okay, I'm done. And then switch places. And then describe again. Do the whole process over again. You're going to find that your perspective is one thing. Because it's where you are. It's what it is at that moment where you are. You're going to find that your perception of things from that perspective is a little skewed and it isn't what you thought it was. Or your perception is being limited by something else. Therefore, when you get done with that experiment, walk around the room. Look at that picture and see what's in that picture and see if you've identified and described those things accurately. Because if you didn't, something is wrong with your perception. And it's not so much something wrong with your perception, there is something wrong with your interpretation of what you see. Now, how can you interpret anything if you cannot compare it to something else? Well, that is why you have your partner switch places with you. And it's better to have a third person there to keep time, to keep all that, and to do that. That way, they can be a neutral source of, okay, at first you described it at this, and then when you changed perspective, you described this as this in the second, area. And now that you're just walking around looking at everything and not focused on anything, here's what you're seeing now. So there's this whole process by which you can test out the theories and the actualities of perspective and perception. Because you're going to find out that it's all based upon, that everything you do in life is based upon where you're standing. And what you don't know is the limited perception you have. You don't know it until you go to that picture on the wall that you saw earlier and look at all the fine details that you could not see before. So you think about that one, because it does work. And I relate that to politics, to world stuff, to geopolitics, to anything. Because if someone is telling you something, you have to listen. I don't care what people say when they say, oh, I can listen and talk at the same time. No, you can't. No, you can't. When you are forming the words and ideas and forming those things in your mind to speak, you cannot hear what the other person is saying. And when you're forming those ideas, those questions, those concepts in your head while that other person is speaking, then you're going to lose focus on what that other person is saying that may be there to help you out. Remember the little test you stood back to back and looked at it? Remember that? Perspective. It is scientifically verifiable and clinically verifiable that you cannot talk to someone and listen to what they're saying at the same time. Period. Okay? It is. I will say this. There are a few people who have the ability and the skill to be able to, as I would like to say, split their concentration. I get called on the carpet on that all the time. I'm criticized up one side and down the other because of the things that I know. And you know what? I don't care. I know what I know. And there comes a point when you just gotta not say anything. To be in a position to where your perspective is one thing and you see it and you know it and you understand it and you have it and there it is and you know the day, time, you know the day, the time, the moment of what happened, and somebody tells you, and they contradict you, who's telling the truth? Okay. This goes back to, you cannot listen and talk at the same time. Now, when I talk about splitting concentration, I'm talking about being able to have a conversation, but also have the ability and the skill to be able to know what's going on around you. Not a 360 perspective, but an awareness that is unlimited and more, and in some cases more focused in certain areas, but changes constantly. So going back to this experiment, you'll have 3 people, 2 people standing back to back, 1 person keeping time, keeping notes. You look at your perspective, you examine where you're standing. You can look down, and when the test begins, just look straight ahead. You can look down, you can look around, you can do all that. And that's even part of the test too, because your preconceived ideas of what's there are one thing. But when you're there in a perspective and you're standing there and you got your face straight ahead and you're staring at that imaginary dot in the wall and you're trying to describe things with limited perception, then of course you're going to get some things wrong. Not so much wrong per se, but you're going to overlook something. You're not going to get the fine details of certain things. You're not going to understand an item that you thought was one thing, but you found out it was something totally different. This is the thing about the world today. Our perspective of things has changed. Not because we've wanted it to change, but we were told it's not what it appears to be. Our perception has been limited by someone else's perspective. Now imagine taking that test again, that experiment. You have those 3 people, the 1 person keeping notes, keeping time, the 2 people with their backs to one another. Now do this. Put them in a cubicle. They know that they're inside of a room, but they're also very much aware that they're inside of a cubicle. And then you say, okay, now describe what you saw before. Tell me what's on the wall over here. Tell me what's over here by the door. Tell me what's in that chair. They're in a cubicle. They can't see. They only saw what they saw when they walked into the room. And believe it or not, your subconscious picked up on those things, right? Boom, 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 boom. Your subconscious picked up on these things. So you put these 2 people back to back in a cubicle. Now you tell them, describe what you saw. Okay. And then, hopefully, as quietly as you possibly can, move the stuff around as they're in the cubicle. Then take something away or move something over here or place something next to something somewhere or, kind of mix it up a little bit. And then when you take the cubicle away from them, it doesn't have to be a cubicle. It could be, it'd be something. Put blindfolds on them. It doesn't matter. But a cubicle means that you're in another place. Your perspective is smaller. The area around where you're at is smaller, and your perception is limited. But go from there. Take the cubicle away, and then have them look around. Look around. Okay, take a look. What do you see? And have them describe the room. They're going to notice that either things were taken away, things were moved, their environment was manipulated when their perception was limited, even though they were in their current position, having their current perspective. Like I said, perspective. Stand in a room, look straight ahead. Okay, now move. Turn to the right, stand still, look straight ahead. Okay, now make an about face, look the other direction. That's your perspective. You're there in that same spot, but you can move and get different perspectives from that singular spot. Okay, now I know a lot of you are probably saying, what the hell does this happen? What are you talking about? How do you see the world from your perspective? How do you see what is happening around the world from your perspective? From your perspective. And why is it you choose? Here's the other point. There are times that the environment will manipulate itself, or someone will manipulate the environment around you for you to see what they want you to see when you once at one point saw something totally different. So, you have this perspective. So why do you not want to use your skills of perception to see through the dominant factors changing your environment and seeing who, number one, who's manipulating your environment, number two, why? Some people don't want to do that. Here, let me make it real simple so I won't, so your head won't explode. And that's this. There are people out there that absolutely positively do not want to even talk about what is going on because, and here's their excuse, I don't want it ruining my day. Now listen up, jackwagon. Your day's already ruined because somebody's behind the curtain behind your back changing everything around for their purposes, and you just happen to be there. And they're going to change. Because of those changes, it's going to affect you. So you better pay attention to what's going on. And you better get the knowledge to understand what you're perceiving, what your perception is. And you better learn how to interpret it. Now, I know that might sound harsh. It might sound like me telling you what to do and blah-de-blah-de-blah. But I'm not. I'm just telling you that somebody's changing your environment. And I think it would benefit you greatly if you were to pay attention to number one, who and why. Number two, look at it this way. How many people do you know? How many people do you know that will stop at nothing, that will pull out all the stops to change your mind on something, to instill their thoughts, their way, to get you to see things their way? How many people do you know do that? That is someone trying to change your environment. Remember the two people in the cubicle standing back to back and the room itself was being changed? Yeah, the environment around that cubicle was being changed. And when that cubicle was taken away, those two people changed dramatically because things had changed. Oh my God, their perception is wrong. Oh my God. But their perspective, where they were standing, never changed. I know that's deep. I know I'm probably going over your head. I know you're probably sitting there going, oh my God! I am a deep thinker. I see things much differently than other people do because I choose to change my environment instead of allowing other people to change my environment. Okay? I change my perspectives. Sometimes some people may say that I'm wrong. I don't believe so. As a matter of fact, I don't believe in being wrong, but I do believe that I have overlooked a few things and have to go back and look at it again. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm not wrong. I've just overlooked something. Well, let me go back and check it out. It may be something important, which is okay by me. No big deal. But your perspective can change. Your perspective can change. You don't have to stand in that same spot all the time. Okay? You don't. You don't have to stand in that same spot all the time. All right? You can change. And with the changes of perspective, your perception changes. And this is where a lot of your misunderstandings come from. Well, it was this way for many, many years, and that's the way it was done all the time, and that's the way it's got to be done today. No, it doesn't. You can change it. You can change your environment, whether or not somebody is telling you that you can't. You can tell them to take a long walk off a short pier. I find it incredibly odd, and this is just me, and I don't know if there's anyone that thinks this way, but it's incredibly odd that I find that people will not accept change. They will stay in that particular position with their particular specific perspective. I find it kind of odd that people do that. Okay? I challenge each and every single one of my listeners. You're listening to me now. Do that. You and 2 other friends get together and do this. Do that experiment I described. And find out. It's neither wrong nor right. It's not a pass or fail. It's just interesting little experiment. And you might find something about yourself you never thought you knew. That's the goal. Instead of allowing the environment to change you, change your environment, because you might find some things about yourself you never knew. And wouldn't it be better to find certain things out about yourself that you never knew? Or are you too scared? Why would you not want to find out some things? I don't want it ruining my life. To hold on to them and to allow your environment, to allow others to change and manipulate your environment, is the most terrifying thing on the face of this planet. Finding more out about yourself is not so terrifying. It's actually a relief. Folks, it is always great to talk to you. And I'd like to hear from you. freeamericaradio@usa.com. freeamericaradio@usa.com. If you went to the website and it's down, there's a reason for that. Hang on. I got things coming. Things are, just hang on to your horses. Just email me, freeamericaradio@usa.com, freeamericaradio@usa.com. And, I'll be right back after this.
Oh, Sarasota's home for R&B and soul. The Razor Blade Express with Dave the Rave.
And will, to the best of my ability,
preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution of the United States.
the Constitution of the United States.
So help you God.
So help me God.
Ah, damn politicians. My mother always told me this country would be screwed if the liberals had their way. The only sanity I get is when I listen to Jeff Wagner on the Conservative Voice, only on the Conservative Radio Network.
Eastland Radio Repertory Theater is looking for you. Are you a voice actor? Do you want to hone your abilities? Please send your audition clips to Eastland Radio Theater at USA.com. We are currently looking for voice actors to fill certain character roles in an ongoing radio play in development. Please send your audition clips to Eastland Radio Theater at USA.com. Hey, folks, how you doing? Welcome back. Welcome back, folks. How are you? You doing good? Oh, awesome. Is it Veterans Day today? Yeah, I think it is. I want to give a big applause to all the veterans out there. Every one of them. Active, returning, retired. We're talking all of them. I'm happy that you did what you did. I'm glad that you did what you did. You may not be. You may feel good about it. You may not. But I'm not happy how this federal government is treating you. I'm not happy with the fact that you're not getting the care that you need. I'm not happy with the fact that the corporations bought the military and used you as pawns in their form of dominating these countries and occupying these countries and desiring world domination. I'm not happy about that. I believe that, and it doesn't matter how old you are. You could have went in the military when you were 18 and got out when you were 22. Doesn't matter. I believe that every single military personnel, including Coast Guard, should have absolutely 100% free health care. What part of free don't you understand? Free. Who's going to pay for it? What part of free don't you understand? Is the government going to pay for it? What part of free don't you understand? You get a card from the military when you get out. It should be. This is the way it should be for every military personnel. You get a card, and it's white, and it has your picture on it, your rank, your former rank, whatever it is. You walk into a hospital, a doctor, I don't care what it is. You hand them that card. They process. Who's paying for that? What part of free don't you understand? The government doesn't have to spend a dime. The doctors aren't going to charge you, and you ain't got to fork out a buck out of your pocket. What part of free don't you understand? Well, somebody's paying for it, because if a military personnel walks into the doctor's office and there's 5 other people there, their insurance companies are paying for that doctor. So, yeah, those people are paying for it. No, they're not. They're paying for their care. Okay? They're paying the premiums on their policies to pay the doctor for their care in their name. They're not paying the money on the premiums on their policies in your name. They're paying it for themselves and their families. What part of free don't you understand? And if a person needs a prosthetic Maybe they lost a hand or a leg in the war. Or they're quadruple amputee. What part of free don't you understand? I've seen technology that would make the $6 million man look like he got away cheap. Okay? Remember that? Steve Austin, Lee Majors. Yeah, there's a remake coming out, by the way, called The $6 Billion Man. And it's going to be a movie. And it's going to star Mark Wahlberg. Yeah, I don't know how that's going to fly, but I kind of like him, so that's okay. I saw that the other day. But what part of free don't you understand? I believe that your children, up until the age of, well, not age, but when you send them to school, you send them to elementary school. When you send them to school, kindergarten, first grade, elementary school, junior high, middle school, high school, college, whatever. Here's the thing. I believe that education should be free. Well, then how are the books going to get paid for? Doesn't your state have a state tax? Well, the lottery pays for that. No, it doesn't. It is already on record that 80% of that lottery money does not even hit the school districts at all, ever, period. So what part of free don't you understand? And I'm talking secondary, high school, that kind of thing, plus community colleges and universities. Well, how are they supposed to stay open? Well, doesn't your state have taxes? Doesn't your state have certain things that they do within, their infrastructure that allows for people to go to school? Then okay, here's this. Let me ask you a question. You're a resident of your state. No matter what state it is, here in the lower 48, including Hawaii and Alaska, you have this infrastructure in your state that supports what? Foreigners coming over here getting free education. So how about tapping into that well? What part of free don't you understand? Okay. Well, we can't do it. Let me, right now, hey, you number crunchers out there, send me your information. Free America Radio at USA.com. Free America Radio at USA.com. Okay. Check this out. If the state, I'm just looking at the state, whatever state you're in, if the state eliminated over 75% of the bureaucracy in your state, I'm talking really bureaucracy on steroids, if they got rid of 75% of those departments, okay, how much money would the state make in regards to state taxes? Now, some states don't have state taxes. There's other ways that they get taxes. Consumption tax. How about that? How much money would the state save if they eliminated 75% of all redundant or bureaucratic, wasteful departments? How much money would they save? Still, remember, you're still at the same state tax level, maybe lower at 2 or 3%. But how much would the state save? And how much would they make? Would they make enough to support the community colleges and the universities for potential students, where they would not have to pay a tuition of anywhere between $10,000 to $50,000 a semester? Huh? Well, the state would go broke then. What part of free don't you understand? The state wouldn't be paying for the books, or maybe in a limited fashion they might, but they'll be paying for the electricity and the upkeep of the universities and the colleges. That's all. What part of free don't you understand? Now, somebody once told me years ago, I was discussing an item of interest when I was living in California, and I asked this person, what is a welfare state? And they looked at me and they said, well, that's what I thought. The first thing that came to mind was people sitting on their butt doing nothing. We can't have that anymore. This country is $20 trillion in debt almost. Go to usdebtclock.org. usdebtclock.org. We're not going to be able to pay that off. And if we have people sitting on their butts doing nothing and just sucking off the system, it's not going to help. Now, there's probably somewhere about 5% of the people, number crunchers, help me out here. There's about 5% of the population, or 5% per state, populations per state, that are on the system in some way, shape, or form. Whether they're on Social Security disability, whether they're on state aid, whether they're on, some sort of housing or SNAP or EBT or something. They're on something. But those 5%, they need that. Okay? They're either disabled, they're either, unfortunate things happen to people, so they have to go on some sort of state aid. Those people need it. Okay? And they may be retired. But here's the thing. The rest of them are just sitting around doing nothing. And what about unemployment? That's a totally separate issue. Tack on another 2 to maybe 3% on top of the 5 I talked about earlier. There you go. Did you know that there's almost 100 million people on unemployment right now? There's almost, and I would even go as far as saying this, there's 46 million people at last figures I saw. 46 million people on some sort of state aid. Some sort of federal aid through the state. Now, they're not counting those people who have gotten off of the emergency unemployment rolls per state. Those people are probably, relying on their husbands, relying on their wives. They're not on the dole anymore. They're probably working under the table. They're making a little here, a little there. They probably got a part-time job. But you see, the job numbers are totally screwed. Actually, they're totally bogus from the General Accounting Office and the Congressional Budget Office. Go look at those numbers, actually. They're totally bogus. They're lying through their teeth. They always have. Okay? I would even say, if possible, don't know how practical it would be, but if possible, all hospitals should be free. In other words, I shouldn't have to pay a dime going to the emergency room. Well, that goes back to healthcare being free, doesn't it? How are the hospitals going to stay open? Doesn't the state have a way to do that? And doesn't the federal government spend billions, if not trillions of dollars killing people in other countries? Well, why don't we just stop that right there? I would even go as far as saying this. I said this for the state, I'll say this on the federal level. Take 75% of all the bureaucracies and all the bull crap coming out of Washington, D.C. and dump it. Matter of fact, let's go one further than that. Let's go 80% of all bull crap coming out of all the departments and all of that coming out of Washington, D.C. needs to be eliminated immediately. How much money would they save? Still at the same federal tax level that we're at, how much money would they make? And how much money could they give not loan, give to the states to help out with health care. Free health care for all 300 million people in America. Wouldn't that be a trip? You wouldn't have to worry about going to work. I mean, you'd go to work, but your job, your employer would not have to worry about paying a premium to a group health care provider, health care, package and all that. Wouldn't have to do that. Oh, and guess what? You get to keep about, say 30 to 50% more of your money in your paycheck. Because, as you know, the less money goes out, the more you save, the more expenses go down. So therefore, Washington, D.C. wouldn't have to spend the billions and trillions of dollars on the military-industrial complex to go occupy other countries and kill other people. They'd force that money into the states. And how much money would the government make if it was so low to the point of having a completely flat tax or consumption tax and eliminating the personal income tax forever? Well, you couldn't do that right now because you have this bureaucratic, non-governmental entity called the Internal Revenue Service, which is not even part of the federal government. We need to walk over to their bosses at the Federal Reserve. We need to walk over there, grab the printing press, go back to the Treasury and set it in that building and say, now it's back in the hands of the people. What part of free don't you understand? When you free up money, when you free up resources, you tend to have more. You tend to build more. You tend to become more. And that's what we need right now, isn't it? You put yourself on the fast track to success when you're able to look beyond the boundaries and to eliminate those things in your life that have changed your environment, that have put the cubicles around you as you stand there having your perspective on things, hearing and having limited sight to what's going on, limited hearing and limited sight as to what's going on around the world and around your, particular position. You have this keener sense. You have this keener sense of having this idea that, hey, I got stuff to do. I'm not limited by my environment. I'm not limited by those who manipulated my environment to limit me to my own personal little cubicle. Did you know that you can just walk right out of that cubicle anytime you wanted? Yeah, it's called... It's literally taking matters into your own hands. I was going to say something else, but it's taking matters into your own hands. And living a life that you deserve, that you know you can live, that you know you want to live. And what you have to do is realize that others are manipulating your environment to suppress you, to repress everything that you are. Oh, yeah. Oh, does that mean that we can just do whatever we want? No. Certain rules that you still got to follow. Certain laws of the land that you still have to abide by. This is why I get very, very, very pissed off at people who yell and scream and jump up and down and say we need to take God out of schools, out of country, out of all this. But I never hear the atheist. I never hear the hardcore take in God trust off the dollar bill atheist scream and yell about the Muslims in school wanting their way. I never hear that. I never hear them talking about the Mormons. I never hear the atheists talking about the Jehovah's Witnesses in school. I never hear this, or in government, or in your county or city or whatever, in your, government buildings. I never hear this. I never hear the atheists scream at the top of their lungs that, that we need to get, well, you know how the atheists are. I'm not going to go into a huge diatribe as to what, they're saying, because I know what they're saying. They're saying get rid of Christianity. Well, they don't give a crap about Jehovah's Witnesses or Mormons or Muslims or radical jihadists or anybody like that in the schools trying to, implement their little rules and regulations. No, atheists don't scream about that. They scream about Christians trying to push, as they say, their belief. It's a separation of church and state. That's not what Thomas Jefferson meant. And these atheists are stupid if they keep using that poor excuse for their little way of doing things. Do you see who's manipulating your environment now? By the way, when the Bolshevik Revolution happened and the czars were killed, or the czar and the czarist was killed, whatever, they implemented what we know now as communism with no religion. And there were atheists until about probably the 50s and 60s, I guess. But they changed the environment, and it got really, really bad for a very long time. I'm encouraged by people's perseverance. I'm encouraged by people's knowledge of things that can be instead of things that, well, they think should be. I use that term too, things should be. No, I use it in a more ecumenical way and say, hey, wouldn't it be easier if? Wouldn't it be better if? I know we don't live in Shangri-La, and this is not a utopian society as much as the New World Order and the Bilderbergs and the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers want it to be. But I do know this. You were not put here for no reason. There was a reason for you to be here in this time, in your particular position, seeing things from your particular perspective. I think it's now time you pay attention. But that's my 2 cents worth on that one. I think in my opinion, I think people have to, in some way, shape, or form, realize that they're being manipulated. However they want to figure that out, they have to realize they are being manipulated. And, Free America Radio Network shares the truth one fact at a time. And sometimes, I go as deep as I can in the first segment. And I try to tell you, who's behind the curtain, pushing the buttons and pulling the handles. But I also try to encourage you. I try to encourage you. I hope I am. And let me know, freeamericaradio@usa.com. Because I want to know how far you've gotten. I want to know, because you inspire me. I want to know how you have changed your environment. And how you've defended your freedom, your ability to, understand what liberty is and what freedom is. I want to hear from you. It's encouraging to hear from people. And I got to tell you, the easiest thing that I know to do is to move forward. It's the easiest thing I know to do. You know, I could fall down, scrape my knee, get back up. I keep walking. I keep moving forward. I keep pushing. It's there. You know? It's there. You know, when I was a kid, I used to go out and play outside and fall down. And you know what it is? You know, all of that, parents, I'm talking to you. If your kid falls down or whatever, or, you know, you think that, you know, what, let's put it this way. It's all conditioning, physical conditioning. How is the body ever going to know how to use its immune system if you keep holding your child in a giant plastic bubble all the time? I'm overemphasizing the fact that parents are just a little too much when it comes to being overbearing and overprotective and all of that. If your kid falls off the slide at school, that pain's going to go away. If that child is upset that you're upset because they didn't eat all their veggies because you thought they needed to, that kid's not going to like his veggies too much. I have personal experience with that one because as a kid, my aunt kept wanting to feed me broccoli and the whole 9 yards. I quit eating it for a very, very long time. I was in my 20s when I finally started eating the green beans and the broccoli and the asparagus and all of that. Took me a long time to get over the fact my aunt wanted to shove that down my throat, so stop it, parents. Well, the kid's got to eat right. Really? If he doesn't like the food, don't force it on him. If he doesn't like the book, don't make him read it. If he doesn't like this, don't make him do it. If he doesn't like that, don't make him see it. Allow that child to be and watch that child grow. Because you are affecting his environment and you are suppressing that environment and changing that environment just like that experiment I talked about earlier. So think about that one. Hey, if I'm wrong, send me the information. I want to know. FreeAmericaRadio@USA.com. FreeAmericaRadio@USA.com. Yeah, so... folks, I'm gonna get out of here for a little bit. Like I said, it's only gonna be an hour, so I'm gonna go away. And please email me. I'm changing around the website a little bit, moving, just working with it, man. I told you I'm scaling back a whole lot, so I'm kind of regrouping, resetting, and remodeling. So sorry about the mess. So if you have any questions, concerns, comments, even if you disagree with me, show me why. FreeAmericaRadio@USA.com. FreeAmericaRadio@USA.com. And folks, I got some news coming up at the top of the hour. And then I have Chris Ann Hall coming up right after that. So hang out, be cool. And again, FreeAmericaRadio@USA.com. FreeAmericaRadio@USA.com. Don't let your environment change you. Change your environment. Don't allow your child to manipulate you. Find out what they want and work with it. Help them change their environment. Don't let the environment change them either. Okay? It's not going to be a good thing for either one of you. Remember this, folks. Your perspective. Think about that one. I'll talk to you later. We the people have the power, for we are America.
This is the Liberty Beat, your daily source for liberty news and activist updates. Online at thelibertybeat.com. I'm Brian Hagan with your Liberty Beat for Tuesday, November 11, 2014. Gold is trading around $1,166, silver $15.61, and Bitcoin's trading around $370. Today's precious metal prices are brought to you by Roberts & Roberts Brokerage Incorporated, specializing in precious metals since 1977. Now accepting Bitcoin, online, rrbi.co, or by phone, 800-874-9760. The Liberty Beat is made possible in part by eFoods Direct, redefining the way you think about storable food. eFoods Direct is offering 10% off to all Liberty Beat listeners. Just go to efoodsdirect.com/LibertyBeat or call 800-620-5520 and mention Liberty Beat for your savings today. In the news, on Monday, President Obama issued a statement and a YouTube video explaining his support for net neutrality and an open internet.
And that's why I'm urging the Federal Communications Commission to do everything they can to protect net neutrality for everyone. They should make it clear that whether you use a computer, phone, or tablet, internet providers have a legal obligation not to block or limit your access to a website.
The president's comments were released as demonstrators rallied outside the home of Federal Communications Commission Chairman Tom Wheeler. The Nation reports that the Ping Mei, an international cargo ship owned by James Chow, father-in-law to U.S. Senator Mitch McConnell of Kentucky, was stopped leaving Colombia in passage to the Netherlands. Colombian Coast Guard agents searched the boat and seized approximately 90 pounds of cocaine. Chow, an immigrant from Taiwan, successful in shipping, has donated an estimated $5 to $25 million to Senator McConnell's campaigns since the late 1980s, according to Daily Kos. On Friday, the U.S. Department of Agriculture approved a genetically engineered potato for commercial planting in the United States. The innate potato was developed by the J.R. Simplot Company as an effort to reduce the level of a suspected carcinogen that appears when frying a potato. Following field trials in 2009 through 2011, the potato has now been approved by the USDA, the Environmental Protection Agency, and the Food and Drug Administration. The Simplot Company is one of the suppliers of frozen French fries for McDonald's. The Liberty Beat is brought to you in part by Marjorie Wildcraft's Grow Your Own Groceries. Homegrown food on every table. That's growyourowngroceries.org. Support also comes from My Magic Mud, detoxifying tooth powder, the most effective and affordable dental care around. Jessica Armand would like to thank Liberty Beat listeners for all their support. Get a 150 application jar at mymagicmud.com. This is the Liberty Beat for Tuesday, November 11th, 2014. Check out the website at thelibertybeat.com and like us on Facebook at facebook.com/thelibertybeat. A family of 4 will embark on a 3-week Bitcoin-only road trip over the Thanksgiving holiday. Expenses such as food, gasoline, and lodging will all be paid for with the cryptocurrency as they journey from Texas to California, Nevada, Colorado, and Missouri.
Our goal with the Unconventional West Coast Tour is to inspire the Bitcoin community to spend their Bitcoin on food, gasoline, and lodging.
This is the second Bitcoin-only road trip for the Blush family this year. Last June, Catherine, her husband John Bush, and their 2 children traveled over 4,400 miles from Texas to Washington, D.C., New York, New Hampshire, and Ohio, spending Bitcoin only. A few things have changed since that last time out. We'll talk about that tomorrow. You can follow their journey at unconventional.com. This evening at 6 o'clock in San Marcos, Hayes Constitutional Republicans will meet to discuss adopting an official policy stance on laws regarding marijuana. No position on marijuana has been previously voted upon. Members will hear views from Marijuana Policy Project Representative Heather Fazio. Law enforcement and local officials have been invited to the discussion. Hayes Constitutional Republicans Programs Coordinator Trent Poole gave his opinion.
As more states turn to legalization over criminalization and begin to favor rehabilitation over incarceration for other drug crimes, it's important that Republicans see the bottom line, see how much money is spent on incarcerating individuals for these victimless nonviolent crimes.
Hayes Constitutional Republicans meet tonight at 2601 Hunter Road in San Marcos, beginning at 6. Today's edition of the Liberty Beat is made possible in part by the Laura Presley for Austin City Council District 4 campaign. Laura made the runoff and needs your support. To donate or to sign up to volunteer, visit PresleyForAustin.com. Political advertisement paid for by the Laura Presley campaign. This is the Liberty Beat for Tuesday, November 11th, 2014. I'm Brian Hagan reporting, reminding you, spread liberty with a smile.
Take the light.
Sarasota's home for R&B and soul. The Razor Blade Express with Dave the Rave.
And will, to the best of my ability,
preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution of the United States.
the Constitution of the United States.
So help you God.
So help me God.
Ah, damn politicians. My mother always told me this country would be screwed if the liberals had their way. The only sanity I get is when I listen to Jeff Wagner on the Conservative Voice, only on the Conservative Radio Network.
Eastland Radio Repertory Theater is looking for you. Are you a voice actor? Do you want to hone your abilities? Please send your audition clips to Eastland Radio Theater at USA.com. We are currently looking for voice actors to fill certain character roles in an ongoing radio play in development. Please send your audition clips to Eastland Radio Theater at USA.com.
Is he a conservative liberal? Or is he a liberal conservative? You decide. You're listening to The Views Expressed with Reverend Wayne S. Pierce.
Imagine a towering skyscraper with numerous floors, and each floor represents a different level of existence. Matter, spirits, angels, ghosts, extraterrestrials, quantum physics, biology, neuroscience, religion, metaphysics, even paranormal studies, all have their place in The Grid. The Grid, Exploring the Hidden Infrastructure of Reality, by Marie D. Jones and Larry Flaxman. Available at Barnes & Noble and Amazon.com. Listen to Crash Talk with your host, Christopher John Taylor, on HTLA973.com. That would be HTLARadio1.com. Hey, this is Reverend Wayne S. Pierce popping in to say that if you have any questions, comments, concerns, and even if you disagree with me, please email me at freeamericaradio@usa.com. That would be freeamericaradio@usa.com. Now, I'll send you back to the programming.
I know you're out there. I know that you're afraid. You're afraid of us. You're afraid of change. I don't know the future. I didn't come here to tell you how this is going to end. I came here to tell you how it's going to begin. I'm going to hang up this phone, and then I'm going to show these people what you don't want them to see. A world without rules and controls, without borders or boundaries. A world where anything is possible. Where we go from there is a choice I leave to you.
The Chris Ann Hall Show.
Any varmint that crosses that lady's path has met its match.
Rise and shine, liberty-loving patriots. Welcome to the Chris Ann Hall Show. You can find me at chrisannhall.com, KRISANNEHALL.com. So excited to be here with you today on this wonderful, beautiful day where we honor those who sacrificed so that we might have liberty today. And I want to make sure that this special edition honors those who are living. So thank you, veterans, for your service and for your sacrifice. And thank you, oath keepers, for keeping your oaths. But I don't want us to forget those who came before us, who secured our liberty with their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor. You're going to hear all day today about World War II veterans. You're going to hear today about Vietnam veterans. I think that we quite often and unfortunately forget our Korean War veterans. It's sort of like the unpopular war, I think. I have many relatives who were part of the Korean War. You may call it a conflict, but when we send men and women to die, it's not a conflict. It's a war, regardless of what they call it. We've been too lazy with that word conflict. Conflict is what you have when you disagree with your spouse. Conflict is what you have when you disagree over a treaty. War is what you have when men and women die. And so let's just be clear about that. Okay? Can we please? I'll get off my soapbox now. So listen, we have to remember these people who came before us and gave everything so that we could be who we are today. And we have an obligation to continue in that tradition. Problem is we don't know what it is that we did, and we don't know how we got here. We have no idea what our obligation is and what we're supposed to be doing to secure it. How do we do that? I mean, that is evident to me when I teach. The most asked question I get is, Chrisanne, how do we fix this? If we knew how we got here, we wouldn't be asking that question because we know how to fix this. And so I want to start off by teaching you about one man. The beginning of our independence, the beginning of who we are today, started with just one man. No, I'm not exaggerating. As a matter of fact, our framers even attributed who we are today to this one man. This man's name is James Otis Jr. James Otis Jr. was an attorney. His father had been an attorney before him. He was well trained in the law, and he was well trained in the British Liberty Charters. If you have been through my training, you know what a British Liberty Charter is. If you have not, then you need to go to my website, chrisannehall.com, KRISANNEHALL.com, and watch one of my videos on the genealogy of the Constitution or pick up one of my books. Because the British Liberty Charters are essential to who we are, how we have the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, and even the Declaration of Independence. So, James Otis Jr., his father being an attorney, taught his children about law and about the British Liberty Charters. The British Liberty Charters were promises and negotiations between the people and the king to secure more liberty for the people and limit the power of the king. And so James Otis Jr. had been raised in this understanding of liberty, wanted to be an attorney too. He did become an attorney, and he became a great attorney, so great that he received the highest post any attorney can achieve in the colonies. The king recognized his talent and gave him the highest position that any attorney could achieve in the colonies. Now, it was his job to enforce the laws and make sure that people are prosecuted when they break those laws. Now, this is a very trying time for the colonists and for James Otis Jr. in particular, having been well educated in the Liberty Charters. James Otis Jr. was being forced, required, if you want to be soft and fuzzy about it, required to enforce laws that went contrary to his understanding of liberty and his conscience. You see, to make the long story short, Parliament is passing laws on the colonists and refusing to give them representation in Parliament. The colonists had no representation in Parliament. Parliament disagreed with the colonists and said, you have representation because we have people in Parliament who have volunteered to represent your interests. The colonists knew how ridiculous that was. They said if they're over there on the island making laws to be enforced over here in the colonies, and they never have to come to the colonies and live under the laws that they make, then they don't represent us. See, that's a bit of history I wish we had learned. That when the people who make the laws are not forced to abide by those laws or exempted from those laws, then they cannot and do not represent us. Well, James Otis Jr. has a particular problem with a particular law. You see, in order to enforce these unconstitutional laws on the colonists, Great Britain had sent over regular troops. Some of these laws were taxes that were imposed contrary to their constitution, mandated purchases. In all reality, that's what they were. If you don't purchase the linen, lumber, sugar, tea, paper, and ink that we tell you to purchase, if you purchase some other vendor besides the government-approved vendor, we're going to throw you in prison. And then they sent over British troops to enforce these laws, and then gave them the power to search and seize in the colonists' homes and businesses without a warrant. Warrantless searches. They were called writs of assistance. And James Otis Jr. is now in charge of enforcing these writs of assistance and prosecuting people who have been charged in violation of these unconstitutional laws. And he began to become conflicted by those laws and his conscience. So James Otis Jr. decided he couldn't do this anymore. He cannot prosecute people for violating unconstitutional laws. You see, he wasn't like your average law enforcement officer who will enforce the law because it is the law. I don't know how many sheriffs. Unfortunately, we have a remnant of sheriffs who are constitutional, but the most of them will say, well, it's the law. I have to enforce the law. And I'll remind you, that's exactly what the sheriff said to Rosa Parks. But you see, a real sheriff will act like James Otis Jr. and say, no, I cannot enforce the law if it's an unconstitutional law. If it violates our liberty, we cannot enforce this law. That's what a real oath keeper does. And James Otis Jr. resigned his post. He could have just walked away, but he did not. He started writing articles, handing out flyers to people, explaining to them how the government was violating their liberty by engaging in warrantless searches. Can you imagine a government employee exposing the government for warrantless searches? What do you suppose happened to him? Well, he was called every bad name in the book. A traitor. Said he should be charged with treason. He was outcast in his community and told that if he didn't shut up, he would never practice law in the kingdom again. How could you call somebody a traitor who was exposing the government violating your liberty? Imagine that. James Otis Jr. didn't stop there. James Otis Jr. took up a lawsuit against the government, against these writs of assistance. It's amazing the things that James Otis Jr. had to go through. He called these warrantless searches the worst instruments of arbitrary power, the most destructive of English liberty ever found in an English law book. And he said, and I quote, I can sincerely declare that I cheerfully submit myself to every odious name for conscience sake, and from my soul I despise all those whose guilt, malice, or folly has made them my foes. Let the consequences be what they will. I am determined to proceed. Those consequences, be as they will, amazingly enough, were the government charging James Otis Jr. with treason. See, he resigned his post, but then they forgot and charged him with abandoning his post, which is treason, which means he could have been shot on sight. James Otis Jr. would not be shot on sight. No, they would get a band of mercenaries to wait for him outside a restaurant as he was coming out by himself of a restaurant one night and try to beat him to death. Yeah, see, that's how the government does things. They don't bring you to trial. They just try to secretly assassinate you without any due process. Fortunate for James Otis Jr., they did not beat him to death, but they did beat him senseless. and he suffered brain damage that he would never get over. But James Otis Jr., before that beating, would bring his case to the courtroom and would argue for 5 solid hours against these writs of assistance. An amazing day in which the court would not even give him the courtesy of a ruling. You know, we have these writs of assistance today. They're called national security letters. And they're being enforced by the FBI, the Department of Homeland Security, and by your local law enforcement against you. But you'll never know because there's a gag order. Come back, I want to show you the most amazing thing ever said about James Otis Jr. and liberty.
Chris Ann Hall Show. She's Liberty's lobbyist.
James Otis Jr. loved his native country of England. And because he loved his country, he could not let his people suffer at the hand of an oppressive king. On February of 1761, James Otis Jr. argued in the State House for 5 hours that these writs of assistance were against English law and a violation of English liberty. James Otis Jr. told everyone that the writs of assistance were going to kill liberty and destroy the very basis for English law. He knew the most important kind of liberty was to be free and safe in your own home from government intrusion. He knew that the Bill of Rights of 1689 was a promise from the king to never search the people without a warning or without good reason. He knew that these warrantless searches were a violation of liberty. He knew that this oppressive king was breaking his promises, and James Otis Jr. had to stand against this tyranny, or liberty would be lost forever. Some people say what James Otis Jr. did was no big deal. I have read that in history books. Oh, well, he was not really a big important part of our history, but you know what? That's not what those who lived it said. John Adams wrote about this day 40 years later. He said, "But Otis was a flame of fire, with a promptitude of classical allusions, a depth of research, a rapid summary of historical events and dates, a profusion of legal authorities, a prophetic glare of his eyes into the future, and a rapid torrent of impetuous eloquence. He hurried away all before him." And then John Adams said, "American independence was then and there born." This is February 1761, I'll remind you. American independence was then and there born. The seeds of patriots and heroes to defend the vigorous youth were then and there sown. Every man of an immense crowded audience appeared to me to go away as I did, ready to take up arms against writs of assistance. Then and there was the first scene of the first act of opposition to the arbitrary claims of Great Britain. Then and there, the child of independence was born. And in 15 years, namely in 1776, that child grew up to manhood and declared himself free. James Otis Jr. stood for liberty, stood against unconstitutional laws, oppressive government. The people all around threatened him, lied about him, called him traitor, called him terrorist. But that didn't stop James Otis Jr. He decided that standing for liberty was more important than people liking him. He said the only thing that really mattered to a person who loved God and loved liberty was what he could do for the liberty of his country. After his argument against writs of assistance, James Otis Jr. would continue to fight for liberty. He was a leader for the Stamp Act Congress. He wrote several important patriotic pamphlets. And on September 12th, 1768, James Otis Jr. gave a very important speech at a town hall meeting encouraging others to fight for liberty. He was not afraid of anything that man could do or say against him. He knew that liberty was a gift from God, and there is nothing more important than standing for the things that God has given to us. James Otis Jr. pledged his life, his home, his health, his reputation, even when people lied and called him names. And because of people like James Otis Jr., who loved liberty more than their lives, America was able to become an exceptional nation. And yet, we don't teach James Otis Jr. We deny him his due honor. We have historians who say what he did was not a big deal. Isn't it about time that we teach our children what real patriotism looks like? Well, when we come back after the break, we're going to talk about the first man who gave his life for our liberty movement. Can you name his name? Do you know his name? Do you know the date he died and what he died for? Do you know that there were others like him who died too? And when we come back, we'll learn that lesson that has been hidden from you in the progressive agenda.
My mama always said I was born for this, and some people wouldn't like that I was different. It never really mattered how hard it would be, 'cause she filled me with love and the strength to lead. She said, if we were gonna be a flame, then we're gonna light a bonfire. Let it burn, let it burn. Gonna burn something down if you get in our way.
The Chris Ann Hall Show. She's Liberty's lobbyist.
Do you like this history that I'm teaching you? Is it history that you've never heard before or only have heard from me? Do you want to know more? Go to my website, chrisannhall.com, KRISANNEHALL.com. Go to the bookstore. Get a book called Essential Stories for Junior Patriots. Yes, it's written for high school and middle school students, but I'm going to tell you what, it's an easy read. And I teach from this book quite a bit, because this is the history that made us great. We need to put this book in the hands of all of our young people, because this history is something that they're being denied. Can you go? It's only $10. Can you go to the website today and order some for Christmas presents, perhaps, and help secure the liberty that was bought for us by teaching the truth and teaching things that they're not being taught, contrary to what they're being taught to school. The students that I teach, when I get to teach the students, they love the history lessons that I'm teaching them, because it's a dynamic history and they're so used to being bored to death with it. And they love hearing about these people. If you get this book and read this book to your children, or allow them to read it themselves, they will love it. I guarantee you, I have kids all over the country who write me and tell me that. I have homeschool groups who are using this book. I have Christian schools who are using this book. I have charter schools who are using this book. And I am proud to say that it is this history that is essential to knowing who we are, so that we will raise up generations of patriots who will know what we are supposed to be fighting for. So my question was, who was the first man who gave his life in this liberty movement? Well, his name is Crispus Attucks. Crispus Attucks was a whaler with the Merchant Marines who was docked at the Boston Harbor. One day there was a loud ringing of bells. Crispus Attucks thought there was a fire, and he ran out of his ship to find the bells that were calling the patriots to fight against the king. See, it was not a fire he was looking at. It was his own government picking up arms against his own people. Without a single thought of his own safety, Crispus Attucks ran back into the ship and got 55 of his shipmates to join him in this battle for liberty. Crispus Attucks knew that he had to fight for liberty. He used to be a slave. He knew that liberty was the most important thing he could possess. The British regular troops were waiting for them, and Crispus Attucks was shot and killed. He is the first patriot to die for the holy cause of liberty in America. As we learn about the history that makes America an exceptional nation, we cannot forget that there are men and women of color who gave their lives for us. They knew that an oppressive king would never let all men have liberty. An oppressive government would never let all men be free. And these men and women of color believed that liberty, and they believed that America was a place where all men could be created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. They picked up arms to help to overthrow the oppressive government, to restore liberty. And if we forget this part of our history, we will never understand the true meaning of American exceptionalism. These people were recognized for their bravery and their courage in their time. Crispus Attucks was honored. There's a poem written by Crispus Attucks in his day by a man named John Boyle O'Reilly. Honor to Crispus Attucks, who was leader and voice that day, the first to defy and the first to die with maverick car and gray. Call it riot or revolution, his hand first clenched at the crown. His feet were the first in perilous place to pull the king's flag down. His breast was the first one rent apart, that liberty's stream might flow. For our freedom now and forever, his head was first laid low. Call it riot or revolution, or mob or crowd as you may. Such deaths have been seed of nations. Such lives shall be honored for aye. Crispus Attucks was not the only black man to give his life for our liberty, to fight for our liberty. There were provisions among the states that said if you are a slave and you want to fight for liberty, you can be a free man forever. Interestingly enough, the British government was also arming the slaves, but telling them, you can fight, but you'll be a slave forever. There was a group of black men who formed a regiment called the Bucks of America, a militia from the state of Massachusetts. George Middleton was a freeman and a black man. He volunteered to be a leader in the fighter for liberty. Middleton was given the rank of colonel in his army, called the Bucks of America. He continued to fight for liberty after the Revolutionary War by forming the African Benevolent Society of 1796, which provided assistance to widows and orphans from the Revolution. Peter Salem, a slave, told his master that he wanted to fight for liberty. Mr. Salem was declared a freeman because of his desire to fight for liberty. He joined the Continental Army. He fought at Bunker Hill, where he is remembered for shooting and killing a British major by the name of John Pitcairn. Many believe if it hadn't been for Peter Salem, Major Pitcairn would have won the battle. Peter Salem was so loved by the soldiers of New England that they gave Mr. Salem an award for his bravery, and he was introduced to General George Washington as a great hero. Peter Salem continued to fight for liberty and fought bravely in many battles. How about Ned Hector? Hector was another patriot of color who fought in the battles of Brandywine and Germantown. He is remembered for his bravery. When his military unit was being defeated and the order came to retreat, he refused to retreat. He didn't. You see, provisions were hard to come by for the patriots, and he knew that if he retreated, the enemy soldiers would have all their provisions. He said, "The enemy shall not have my team. I will save the horses or perish myself." He ended up saving his horses and getting a Medal of Honor from George Washington. How about Admiral Bernardo de Galvez? He was a great leader and fighter for liberty and the governor of Louisiana when it was owned by Spain. Admiral de Galvez smuggled items into the colonies to help the people fight for their liberty. He risked his life and his sailors to bring people gunpowder, muskets, uniform, medicine, and other supplies in violation of the laws of Great Britain. Before the country of Spain ever decided to help the colonists in the war, de Galvez was fighting in New Orleans for liberty. De Galvez captured a letter from the British government that told the king's generals exactly where to attack the colonists. De Galvez took this letter and quickly organized troops to defend the colonists. They were able to kick the British soldiers out of the Mississippi River, out of Mobile, Alabama. Admiral Bernardo de Galvez fought bravely for our colonists and helped to stop this tyrannical government. You see, how do we treat these valiant men, these minorities as we would call them today? We deny them their honor. We deny them their place in history because we have to give a view of the Constitution that denies that minorities had a role to play in our liberty. Why do we have to do that? Because then we can teach our children. If we deny their role in all of this, we can teach our children that the Constitution was a document of oppression, that the Constitution made men property. No, I'm sorry, it wasn't the Constitution that called men property. That was the Supreme Court of the United States. You know, that one group of federal government that we have to honor above others as being infallible and being the ultimate arbiters of the universe called men property. No, our Constitution called men people. And it was our Constitution that ended slavery, not the war between the states. And it was men of color who gave their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honors so we could be free. And if we knew this history and still deny it, we ought to be ashamed in our souls. Because you know what that means? There are some men who gave their only free breath so we could be free. How about we teach our children the truth for a change? How about we teach our children that the Constitution was not a document to oppress minorities and women? Because you see, the men were not the only people who sacrificed and fought for our liberty and for the formation of this union. To understand the fight for liberty, we have to know all the people who fought for us. Our founders, both men and women, knew that they were fighting to create a place where all would be equally free. They said, Jews, Turks, pagans, and Christians. They wanted to make a nation where all would be free for ages and millions yet unborn, Richard Henry Lee said. They were thinking about us. As we go about our days, do we think about them? They promised that they would sacrifice everything they had, even their own lives, just so we could live where we could enjoy liberty without being oppressed by our government. The women knew they had to stand for liberty or their children would suffer. When these women saw the oppressive government and its violation of their liberty, they didn't worry about themselves, but they worried about their children and their grandchildren. One of these great women was a woman by the name of Penelope Barker, and she was the leader of the second Tea Party. You know, the Sons of Liberty threw tea in the harbor. Penelope Barker pulled the women together just 10 months after the Sons of Liberty dumped tea in the harbor. Penelope Barker asked the women to join the fight against the oppression in name of liberty. She sent this message to her friends. Maybe it has only been the men who have protested the king up to now. That only means we women have taken too long to let our voices be heard. Hey, ladies out there, how many of you are afraid to be heard? Because you might lose your job or your friends might call you names. Why don't we take up the history of Penelope Barker?
The Chris Ann Hall Show. She's Liberty's lobbyist. Chris Ann Hall Show. She's Liberty's lobbyist.
On our Veterans Day, as we honor the men and women who gave their lives so we can be free, let us not forget those who gave the ultimate sacrifice to create a place worth fighting for. We're talking about the women now because Ginsburg and the feminazis want you to believe that the Constitution oppressed women, that our foundation was built by a bunch of rich white guys who hated everybody but themselves and their own money and were just trying to avoid paying their taxes, their fair share. But it was not about taxes, it was about liberty. And I think it's about time we start teaching the truth instead of complaining about the lies that the government is teaching. Why don't we stop complaining about what our schools are teaching and start teaching the truth to our children so that they can go back to school and correct their teachers? That's always fun for them. Our women wept over what the king was doing to their liberty, over what Parliament was doing with their liberty. Penelope Barker said, maybe it's only been the men who have protested the king up to now. That only means we women have taken too long to let our voices be heard. They knew they had to stand. And women would join Penelope Barker in the home of Elizabeth King in Edenton, North Carolina, and make a pledge that shows you just how brave and just how resolved they were. Think about this pledge when you think about what the feminazis want you to believe about the foundation of our country. We are signing our names to a document, not hiding ourselves behind costumes like the men in Boston did at their Tea Party. The British will know who we are. Did you hear that? They're calling out the men for being cowards, hiding behind costumes, and telling the British government, we're signing our names because we ain't scared. What was more amazing about this? These were not women of no reputation. There were over 50 women who made this promise throughout the colonies. And these women carried the last names of men who were English merchants. You see, this pledge was that they would purchase no English-made goods until the laws that have enslaved their people are repealed. They declared that mandated purchases were slavery, and they said, we will not comply. Mercy Otis Warren, my favorite founding mother, first American woman playwright. She wrote plays, Shakespearean-style plays, whose purpose was satire to poke fun at the British government and increase the following for the liberty movement. She's the first American woman historian. She wrote a 3-volume set called The Rise, Progress, and Termination of the American Revolution. She said, I have to write this. I have an interesting perspective about this because I lived it. Abigail Adams would say about Mercy that she was a sincere lover of her country. She said Mercy was so grieved about the oppression that she wept over what her government was doing. Elizabeth Adams, the wife of Samuel Adams, had to leave her home and hide to protect her family as many of the women did. Elizabeth and Sam Adams gave everything they had for liberty. And they didn't complain, because they were doing it for ages and millions yet unborn. Elizabeth would write a letter to Sam and say to him, please, forgive my writing in this letter, for my paper is bad. They had to make their own paper. And my pen is made from a broken pair of scissors. And then she explained to him how he shouldn't worry because they have an escape route. She had to write letters to her husband using a broken pair of scissors as a pen and live on the run because they believed liberty was more important than their lives. When they thought about what they were doing, they did not do that for themselves. They did it for us. Samuel Adams would write Abigail and say, posterity, You will never know what it costs this present generation to secure your liberty. I hope that you will make good use of it, for if you do not, I shall repent in heaven that I ever took half the pains to reserve it. What do you think about on this Veterans Day? Because they were thinking about us. It's time we stop denying them their honor, their place in history, start teaching our children the truth. Can you spend a few minutes today and override the government propaganda? Let's do this and honor those who came before us. God bless.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order. A world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
Now, one side in this campaign has been telling us that the issues of this election are the maintenance of peace and prosperity. The line has been used, we've never had it so good.
I won't have to worry about putting gas in my car. I won't have to worry about paying my mortgage. You know, if I help him, he's going to help me.
But I have an uncomfortable feeling that this prosperity isn't something on which we can base our hopes for the future.
The key point I'm making right now is that the economy is moving in a positive direction.
And yet our government continues to spend $17 million a day more than the government takes in.
You're telling me we got to go spend money to keep from going bankrupt? The answer, yeah, it's what I'm telling you.
We've raised our debt limit 3 times in the last 12 months. And now our national debt is 1.5 times bigger than all the combined debts of all the nations of the world.
We're going to raise the debt limit. We always have. We will do it again.
We have $15 billion in gold in our treasury. We don't own an ounce.
I have been informed that the majority plans to block consideration of this amendment, which is number 1367, regarding the transparency at the Federal Reserve.
Foreign dollar claims are $27.3 billion.
It said that China has now surpassed Japan as the U.S. government's largest creditor, owning at least 10% of all U.S. debt, perhaps as much as $700 billion.
And we've just had announced that the dollar of 1939 will now purchase 45 cents in its total value.
President Obama is expected to face tough questions over the U.S. decision to pump $600 billion freshly printed dollars into its economy. Now, the move is an attempt to revive the country's finances, but will result in the devaluation of the dollar.
We're at war with the most dangerous enemy that has ever faced mankind in his long climb from the swamp to the stars.
We've got to give them a stake in creating the kind of world order that I think all of us would like to see.
And it's been said if we lose that war, and in so doing lose this way of freedom of ours,
you'll construct a legal regime to make indefinite detention legal.
History will record with the greatest astonishment that those who had the most to lose did the least to prevent its happening.
They're starting a riot here.
Well, I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
For some trips, it'll be faster than flying, without the pat down.
Anna was picked to go through. Pretty much everybody except the baby was picked to go through the scanner.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth.
Damn America, that's in the Bible.
Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
I've got a core set of values that I think have to be advanced, and that my individual salvation depends on our collective salvation.
You and I are told increasingly we have to choose between a left or right. Well, I'd like to suggest there is no such thing as a left or right. There's only an up or down.
We had an election, and it was about a direction for our country.
And regardless of their sincerity, their humanitarian motives, those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. In this vote harvesting time, they use terms like the Great Society, or, as we were told a few days ago by the President, we must accept a greater government activity in the affairs of the people.
E pluribus unum, out of many, one. In the end, that's what this election is about.
Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so.
Over the course of 10 years, it would cost what it would cost us. All right, okay, we're going to. It would cost us about the same as it would cost.
Want to know what's happening all around us? You do? Great! Come check out the Diana and Wayne's Grab Bag Potpourri Talk Show, Friday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern, right here on Spreaker.com. Have a nice trip. See you next fall. Attending their daughter's wedding in South Africa promised to be a vacation of a lifetime. But first, they had to face the treacherous gauntlet known as modern-day travel. Waiting for them on the other side of the world are an honest-to-goodness safari with amorous lions and elephants with anger issues, a life-affirming visit to a South African school, and an anxious bride and groom standing patiently at the airport with a sign that reads, "What took you so long?" The answers lie within the pages of Please Hold Thumbs, a not-so-round trip to South Africa, a true tale of turbulence and triumph from travel mug Scott Cherney, author of Red Asphalt. Available at Amazon.com in paperback and on the Kindle.
This is Michael Vera with Late Night in the Midlands, and you're listening to the views expressed live with your host, Reverend Wayne Pierce, on the Free America Radio Network.
Photography is an art form, and Adventures in Photography shows you all of the forms of art there is in our world. Spencer Hughes captures the colors and works of natural art in his book, Adventures in Photography. For more information, go to SpencerHughesPhotography.com.
And will, to the best of my ability,
preserve, protect, and defend.
Preserve, protect, and defend.
The Constitution of the United States.
The Constitution of the United States.
So help you God.
So help me God.
Ah, damn politicians. My mother always told me this country would be screwed if the liberals had their way. The only sanity I get is when I listen to Jeff Wagner on the Conservative Voice, only on the Conservative Radio Network.
This is Reverend Wayne S. Pierce, and I want to tell you of a DVD that I have watched. It's a very interesting one. It's a film by Alex Jones. It's called Endgame, Blueprint for Global Enslavement. For the New World Order, a world government is just a beginning. Once in place, they can engage their plan to exterminate 80% of the world's population while enabling the quote-unquote elites to live forever with the aid of advanced technology. For the first time, crusading filmmaker Alex Jones reveals their secret plan for humanity's extermination. Operation Endgame. That's Endgame by Alex Jones. Get it at Infowars.com or PrisonPlanet.com. telling you the truth without all the bull. The Wayne S. Pierce Show. The Wayne S. Pierce Show.weebly.com. Don't wait until another natural or man-made disaster strikes. Have at least 72 hours of emergency gear near you at all times, and that includes food. Get your emergency food supply today. Go to freeamericaradio.us, and at the top of the page, click on the emergency food supply link. Help your family by purchasing as much emergency food supply as you need. You'll be helping out your family and Free America Radio Network. Thank you. Hey, folks, this is Reverend Wayne S. Pierce right here at the end of the Views Express Live. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, please ask. Even if you disagree with me, send me the reasons why to freeamericaradio@usa.com. freeamericaradio@usa.com. I would really like to hear from you. So, hey, let me know what's going on. If you have a blog or a website or even a show on Spreaker.com, go ahead and send that to me. I appreciate that, and then I'll promote that. Promotions are free on Free America Radio Network. They're free. I can promote you all day long. If you're selling something, that's a little bit different. Email me, and we'll talk about some advertising, okay? Hey, freeamericaradio@usa.com. freeamericaradio@usa.com. I don't want to leave tonight without saying a big hello to Mr. Bob Brutus over at crazywolfradio.net. Okay, I believe it's .net. Let me go look. I don't want to give you the wrong address, okay? Yes. Yeah, it is if my browser decides to want to work. Yes, Bob Brutus, Crazy Wolf Radio. Look that up. Search for it. You'll find it. Listen to his show. Or go to wakingupthemasses.com. How's that? Let's do that. Let's go waking up the masses.com. Let's see if that goes somewhere, okay? Nope. Don't know why. But anyway, look him up. Bob Brutus. Okay? Bob Brutus. Yes. Anyway, how much time do I have? Hey, anyway, I know a few things that are coming down the line for Free America Radio, so I'll keep you informed of those changes coming. So, hey, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, of course, if you disagree with me, show me why. freeamericaradio@usa.com. freeamericaradio@usa.com. You can also go to the alternate site, freeamericaradio.weebly.com. Hey, check it out. Yeah, check out the Wayne S. Pierce Show.weebly.com site as well. And, folks, I'm going to get out of here. So enjoy yourself. Enjoy your Veterans Day. Shake hands with a veteran. Even, hey, if you've got family in the military, thank you very much. Appreciate it. So anyway, I'll be back at some point tomorrow, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, with the Views Express Live. I will keep you abreast and informed of whether or not it's going to be a live show. I may do a podcast tomorrow. Who knows? Anyway, questions, comments, concerns, even if you disagree with me, freeamericaradio@usa.com. That would be freeamericaradio@usa.com. And we the people have the power, for we are America.